You read people faster than most. You know when something is off before anyone says a word. You have spent your whole life being told you are too sensitive, too intense, too much, and somewhere along the way, you started to wonder if they were right. They are not right. They just did not understand what they were looking at. What gets labeled as anxiety, hypervigilance, or emotional volatility in certain people is not weakness. In many cases, it is a sophisticated set of cognitive adaptations built by a nervous system that had to become extraordinarily competent to survive difficult early experiences. Researchers call this traumatic intelligence, and if you recognize yourself in what follows, what you thought was a flaw may be one of the most complex things your brain has ever done. Chapter 1. What is traumatic intelligence and what the neuroscience says? Trauma does not only damage the brain, under certain conditions, it reorganizes it. Bruce Perry at the Child Trauma Academy has documented extensively how early adverse experiences alter the developing brain's architecture in ways that prioritize threat detection, social reading, and rapid environmental assessment. The brain exposed to chronic unpredictability or danger does not simply accumulate damage, it adapts. It builds competencies that brains raised in stable, predictable environments often do not develop to the same degree. Bessel van der Kolk at Boston University, whose decades of research on trauma and the body established much of the current clinical framework, describes this as the brain becoming exquisitely tuned to the frequency of danger. The same neural rewiring that produces hypervigilance also produces a granular sensitivity to social cues, emotional states, and environmental shifts that most people simply do not register. Traumatic intelligence is not a clinical diagnosis, it is a pattern of cognitive and perceptual strengths that emerge from that rewiring. And like any form of intelligence, it has costs and capacities in equal measure. Here are 5 of its most recognizable signs. Chapter 2. 5 signs your brain developed traumatic intelligence. Sign 1. You read emotional subtext others miss entirely. You don't just hear what people say, you track micro-expressions, vocal tone, the half-second pause before an answer, the way someone's posture shifts when a particular subject comes up. You are running a continuous analysis of the social environment that most people are not even aware is possible. This is not intuition in the mystical sense. It is pattern recognition built by a nervous system that learned early that the difference between a person's words and their actual emotional state had real consequences. The brain sharpened that particular perceptual instrument because it had to. Research on social cognition by Chris Frith at University College London has shown that threat-exposed individuals demonstrate significantly elevated performance on tasks requiring the reading of emotional states from minimal cues. The capacity is real. The cost is that it rarely switches off. Sign 2. You anticipate problems before they exist. You are not a pessimist. You are a threat modeler. Your prefrontal cortex has been trained by experience to run predictive simulations of how situations can go wrong, to identify exit routes, to notice the early signals of deterioration before they become crises. In high-stakes environments, this capacity is extraordinary. In low-stakes everyday life, it produces an exhausting background hum of anticipatory vigilance that other people do not seem to experience. Martin Seligman at the University of Pennsylvania, in his research on explanatory style and learned behavior, identified that individuals with high adverse experience histories develop a more granular and realistic threat prediction model than their peers. The predictions are often accurate. The metabolic cost of running them continuously is significant. Sign 3. You have an unusually high tolerance for complexity and ambiguity. Chaotic or contradictory environments do not destabilize you the way they destabilize others. You learned to function inside contradiction early. You built the cognitive flexibility to hold multiple conflicting realities simultaneously because your environment required it. Daniel Siegel at UCLA describes this as earned complexity, a form of cognitive sophistication that emerges from having to make sense of experiences that did not make easy sense. People who grew up in unpredictable environments often develop an exceptional capacity for nuanced thinking, for resisting the pull toward false certainty, and for operating effectively in ambiguous conditions where others require more structure. Sign 4. You are hyper-aware of your own internal states. You notice shifts in your own physiology and emotion with a precision that surprises people who do not share it. A change in your gut before you can name the feeling, the early signal of a mood shift hours before it peaks, the physical sensation of a situation being wrong before your conscious mind is caught up. Antonio Damasio at the University of Southern California has documented the role of somatic markers, bodily signals that the brain uses to guide decision-making in individuals with high interoceptive awareness. Trauma-exposed individuals frequently develop heightened interoception as a survival adaptation. The body becomes an early warning system. The signal is usually accurate. Learning to distinguish useful signal from noise is the work of recovery. Sign 5. You recover differently from stress than most people. You may go down harder when you go down, but you have also developed a recovery capacity that surprises people, including yourself. You have navigated situations that would have destabilized others completely. You have rebuilt from circumstances most people have not encountered. Anne Maston at the University of Minnesota has spent decades researching resilience and identified that individuals with significant adverse experience histories who develop adaptive coping strategies often demonstrate what she calls ordinary magic, the capacity to reconstitute function after disruption through mechanisms the brain built precisely because disruption was the norm. This is not the same as saying trauma is a gift. It is not. The cost is real and it matters, but the capacities that emerged alongside it are also real, and they deserve to be understood as capacities. Chapter 3. The cost of traumatic intelligence and why it matters. Every strength in Chapter 2 has a shadow. Reading everyone's emotional state continuously is exhausting. Anticipating problems that never materialize depletes the prefrontal cortex. High tolerance for chaos can make stillness feel threatening. Heightened interoception amplifies anxiety as readily as it provides useful signal. And resilience that was built through adversity often comes with a nervous system that never fully learned what safety feels like. The point of understanding traumatic intelligence is not to reframe trauma as an advantage. It is to stop misidentifying adaptations as disorders. The person who cannot stop scanning the room is not paranoid. The person who anticipates every way a situation can fail is not a pessimist. The person who reads subtext no one else notices is not projecting. They are operating with a nervous system that built extraordinary instruments for navigating a specific kind of world. The work is not to dismantle those instruments. It is to learn which environments they serve and which ones they no longer need to be deployed in. So here's your challenge. Pick one sign from this list that you recognized in yourself. Just one. Write down one situation in the last week where that capacity either protected you or cost you something. Not to judge it, to see it clearly for the first time as what it actually is, your brain doing the best it could with the information it had. That clarity is where everything else starts. What you were told was too much was a nervous system that became too competent for the environment it was trying to survive. That is not a flaw. It is an adaptation, and adaptations can be understood, worked with, and gradually redirected toward a life that does not require the same level of vigilance to navigate. You are not broken. You are built for something specific. Now you know what that something is. If this channel is where you want to keep learning, subscribe.
Every video here is the science underneath what you have always felt but never had the language for.